Hi, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About This. My guest today is a high-rated franchise expert in wealth creation through franchising. He passionately talks about the various aspects of franchise ownership, the trade-off between time and monetary investment, and how someone can determine if a franchise is the right business model for them. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Gregory Mohr. How you doing, Greg?
Excellent day, Crystal. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for coming on. You don't mind me calling you Greg, do you? Or should I call you Gregory?
Greg is perfect. Thank you.
Okay, because some people funny about their names. So
Very true.
so it's good to have a little bit of change of pace. Lately we've been talking about a lot of mental health, which we are going to get into as well. Because that's what the platform is based on. But it's good to have a variety of different guests come on to share some valuable information for the audience that they can use. And you're a franchise expert, and apparently you've owned some Taco Bells in the past. Is that correct?
I actually worked for a master franchisor for Taco Bell right out of high school. A lot of us back in the late 70s, which one of our first jobs that we got into was fast food industry. So the one I just happened to pick at the time was Taco Bell. So I didn't know it at the time, but as it turned out, and as I moved up in the business in Taco Bell and started managing her restaurants, I found out that she was a master franchisor, and she owned about 50 Taco Bells throughout the Sacramento, California area. And I went around helping her manage those and building those restaurants up. So it was my first foray into the franchising world, Crystal.
Okay, so go back again. So you weren't the one who owned the franchises. It was someone else who owned it, or was it you?
Right back in that day, there was somebody else that owned it, and I managed her restaurants. I didn't start owning franchises until many years later, after I got out of the corporate world.
Okay, all right. So share a little bit about the franchise industry. I don't know a lot about franchise industry. I know there's a lot of major big name franchises that we all go to: Taco Bell, McDonald's, Wendy's, Popeyes. So tell me, what is the process as far as like getting involved in the franchise business?
Great questions, Crystal. That's, when we think about franchising, that's one of the first things that we think about is the businesses that we drive by on a regular basis, the businesses that we see and then we hear about them being franchises. Your McDonald's, your Taco Bell's, Meineke, Mako, Supercuts, Massage, Envy, those sort of businesses, the brick and mortar businesses, those are the ones that we see as we're driving by. And quite a few of my clients who first come to me, they don't realize that there's actually different franchises out there. There's probably a franchise in just about every industry that you can think of. Those that we see most of the time are what we call the brick and mortar franchises. The basic theme on those is you build them and they will come, which is entirely certain with a good real estate team that the franchise has, a good grand opening on that. And those are usually around $250,000, $300,000 total investment on up from there, and they can go, into $1 million or more, like McDonald's. On the other end of the spectrum, what we're looking at there is the service industry franchises. And these are franchises where your clients don't necessarily know you exist until they need you. So we don't necessarily know about them unless we need their services. Things like Mr. Rooter and the Neighborly brands, Mr. Sparky, in the Authority Brands franchise groups. These are services that people may need at some point in time, but don't always. So you could be thinking restoration services, tutoring, you look at senior care, you can help businesses with business development, you can do corporate cleaning. There are many different types of services industry franchises out there, and they're generally around $150,000 total investment on those. So it's a less of an investment. You can make the same amount of money pretty much. It doesn't matter whether you go into brick and mortar or services industry. It's just a little bit different, and it really just depends on what my clients want. It's kind of confusing out there, I know, Crystal, that there's a lot of different franchises out there, a lot of different things to choose from, and actually trying to figure out how they all work and deciding which one is right for you. That's where I come in helping people get through all that confusion and making a more of a simpler process to determine which would be a good franchise fit for my individual clients.
So if I wanted to own, let's say, for instance, I wanted to buy a McDonald's. I'm going to use that as a scenario. and I came to you and said, Greg, I want to invest in a McDonald's. How does the process start?
First thing,
Take me through that process.
you got it, Crystal. So the very first thing, if you're coming to me and you want a specific franchise, I will check to see if that specific franchise is available in your area.
Okay.
So from a franchise point of view, what they do is that they have territories already lined up, already mapped out for people. If it's a McDonald's or a restaurant or something like that, it's usually a square mile radius that people will drive to on that. And then there'll be, depending on how big of a city that you're in, there'll be different territories that they'll lay out. Services and industry the same way. So we have to make certain that it's actually available in your area first.
Mm-hmm.
If it is, that's great. That's pretty simple. I will get you in touch with those. I will introduce you to that franchise, and I will walk you through the process of investigating them.
Now, when you say available, do you mean you would have to see if the franchise is for sale? When you say, okay.
Good point, Crystal. Good point. So when we're coming to me and you're looking to get into a franchise and you say, I want a McDonald's. So I'm going to assume, well, I won't assume. I'll ask you, are you looking to open up a brand new one, or are you looking for a resale franchise? So if they have one available for sale, I can check for that to see if anything is for sale in that particular area that you're in. If it's not,
okay.
Then when I say we have to look for a territory, that means that nobody has already purchased the rights to that territory.
Okay.
So when you get into a franchise, what you're doing is that you're purchasing the rights for that territory where you're going to open up that franchise in that territory. No other franchisees can come into that territory.
Okay.
With the bigger ones like McDonald's and some of the other franchises, it's a little challenging to find available territories because even though you may not see one in your area, you might think, well, I don't have one, so the territory must be available. What can happen in these cases is that when you get into a franchise, you can actually buy more than one territory. Let's say you want to buy 5. You want to be what we call an area developer, where you develop a big area. Then you're going to have a build out schedule on that. So they won't necessarily expect you to build all 5 the first year as soon as you get into the franchise. They'll have you build 1 the first year, 2 the second, 3 the third. So while you may not see that particular franchise or that particular McDonald's in your area now, somebody might have already purchased the rights to it, just hasn't got around to building it out yet.
Oh, I see. So does it have to be, so if I wanted to purchase a McDonald's in my area, does it have to be in my area, or could I go to, like, let's say I wanted to go to Atlanta, Georgia and open up one? Can I go to any area to open up a McDonald's?
That is going to be specific to the franchise or whether or not they allow you to be a remote operator on that. So there's 2 different ways that you basically can operate a business. You either do it as an owner operator where you're in that business constantly. You're the one that's operating that yourself. So you don't have another job. You don't have another business. You're in there owner operator full time. The other way you can do it is semi-absentee.
Okay.
And semi-absentee is where you've got a manager running it. You're putting in maybe 10 to 15 hours a week, managing the manager, managing the profit and loss statements on that. So specific to your question about opening up in another city, in general, whether you operate it full-time or semi-absentee, most franchises want you within about a 60-mile radius. You want your franchise within about a 60-mile radius of where you live. Because the business model is around that you are the local owner. These are locally owned businesses. Even though it's a large franchise, you're still the local owner on that, and they like you nearby. There's a few that you can do, but maybe 4 or 5, where you can do it in any city you want, where they have a management team that'll run it for you. But in general, about the 500 that I work with, about 495 of them are going to require that when you get into it first, that you are within that around 60-mile radius. Once you've proven yourself as a good operator, then they may consider you allowing you to open something in another city or another state. But that's a little bit more challenging from your standpoint to operate that.
So it's best to start with one franchise and get used to running that one franchise, and then once you become masterful at running that franchise, then you go and open up another one. That's what would make sense for me. I would have to start with one, but my thing is, Okay, so let's say that we're not looking for a brand new brick and mortar. We're looking for a resale. Okay. Um, how does that go as far as like you just purchase that franchise and you become the owner of that franchise, the employees stay within the franchise and everything just transfers over to me? Is that how it will work if I was to purchase like a resale, let's say McDonald's or something like that?
In a perfect world, Crystal, that's the way it'll work. Unfortunately, it's not quite a perfect world on that one. So
Okay.
what happens is that when the franchise resale, so you get into a franchise, any franchise that you decide you want to, you build it up. You're generally going to sign a contract for 5 or 10 years.
Okay.
That doesn't mean you have to stay with that franchise for 5 or 10 years. You can decide you want to sell it. In
Okay.
that case, now as we're talking about, there's a franchise up for sale. It's a resale. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to tell a franchisor that you want to sell it. What they're going to do is that they're going to ask the franchisees around your area if they'd like to purchase it. Generally speaking, other franchisees will purchase your franchise from you on
Okay.
that. But there's not a whole lot of real good franchise resales out there. I do get some, but they're kind of few and far between. It just means that there's no other franchise that wanted it. But I do get some on occasion. So, Crystal, if you were to go in and say, that looks good to me, you would still go through the same process as if you were going to open up a new one.
Okay.
So the franchise wants to make certain that you are the right person for that franchise, just as you want to make certain that that franchise is right for you.
Okay.
So it's really a qualification process.
That's what I was getting ready. I was getting ready to ask you. I have to be qualified before I can purchase that, is what you're saying? To run
Exactly.
that business. Okay.
Exactly. And there's a process that we go through. And that's one of the things that I help people with, that I guide them through, is the process by gathering that information for you to make
Okay.
sure that that's the franchise for you. While at
Okay.
the same time, that franchisor, and especially when I get into the new ones with the resales, it's a little more challenging. But if you're not certain what you want, but you want a franchise, then I can bring back to you franchisors who are looking for people just like you with your skill sets. That way I know I can do the good matchup on that. We can still look at resales, but we have to make certain that your skill set is what the franchisor is looking for in a successful franchisee.
Okay.
Because you want to be successful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You want to be successful. I don't know anything about running restaurants or anything like that, but there are people who may be interested who have that experience. People who are going to be watching this podcast, they might want to, people who got that kind of money to open up a franchise. Now, speaking of money, what is the price range you said again to purchase between 100,000 to 300,000?
If you go into the services industry and you need a small office, you're probably looking at around $150,000 total investment, includes the franchise fee and everything you need to get going.
Okay.
If you were to do something from where your franchise doesn't necessarily require you to have an office, where you can work from home, then you're probably looking at around 100,000, in some cases a little bit less. That's a service industry. You don't need an A+ real estate location. You generally go out to see your clients. This is not where your clients are just going to be walking by and say, "Oh, I need to, I've always wanted to get some restoration service. I need to go in there." It's not anything like that. You go out to your clients. It's the brick and mortar ones, the ones that require build out and good real estate space. Those are the ones that have a little bit more of an investment on there. So you're looking 250 to 300,000, generally speaking, the starting point, and then on up from there, just depending on what type of franchise you wanted to get into.
Oh, you know what? That's funny because I thought owning a franchise would be more than that. I didn't realize it would be around that price range, you know?
A lot of my people don't realize the services industry is not a whole lot of an investment, but you still can make very, very good money out there on those.
Right. Especially the ones that have been around for a long time. You know what I mean?
Correct. And even some of the ones that haven't been around for a long time, you still make good money. The difference is going to be risk level. So the ones that have been around for a long time, you know that they've proven themselves out. They've reproduced it in many cities and states. So it gives you a better feeling of the fact that, okay, now they can help me at my city and state, where the emerging ones, a little bit more of a challenge. You don't have as many franchisees to call upon as well, which is part of the process you go through, is talking with other franchisees about the business and verifying all the information that the franchisor told you and finding out how much do you guys make. Common question. Everybody asks that, and I've got a list of questions for franchisors and franchisees when we get to that point.
Yeah, because that really makes, for me, that would make sense to have a franchise that's already been around, that people already know. Because when you're building something new, you have to have, the hard part is getting people who want to come into that restaurant. You know what I mean? But when you have something that's been around for a long time, like a Popeyes or a McDonald's or a Wendy's, I would say as an investor, that would probably be the route I would want to go, is to purchase something that's already, people are familiar with, places that customers already go to, so that would be the process, the route I would want to go if I was to go into, purchasing a franchise.
Risk and reward on that one as well. So, Popeyes had to start out somewhere. They had to start out somewhere with one. So if you were to get in first on an emerging brand and it took off, and you've got all that territory available to you, that's pretty golden. But
I haven't thought about that.
Yeah, but you're taking the risk that it will take off in the end on there. So good and bad points about both. When you get into a brand new one, the franchisors really got to make certain that you are successful, because their first 5 or 10 franchises out there, they really have to put a lot of effort into making certain that they're successful, because future franchisees will be calling upon them to validate the information. So give and take, risk versus reward type thing.
Right. So how many clients have you worked with, you said, in the past?
A little over 200 at this point in time, 250 in the last 10 years.
Okay. Are you still working in the franchise business right now at this?
I do not own a franchise any longer. I got out of my franchise about 10 years ago when I became a franchise consultant. I started getting into this full time because there's so many people that wanted to get into franchising but just didn't know how, that I sold off my franchise business. Great business on that one. I'm just solely concentrated on my business, Franchise Maven, as a franchise consultant.
Now, what kind of advice would you give to someone who had a fast-paced life, who were dealing with so many other things, other businesses, and they wanted to open up a franchise? Could you have someone, of course you want somebody, well, for me personally, I would want to keep an eye on my money as far as like where the money is going, but everything else, I would like people in those positions to run the franchise. What kind of advice would you give somebody who had a fast-paced life and who was, have so many other things going on?
You're going to invest your hard-earned money in a franchise or in a business, any kind of business. So you need an advisor to help you out. You deserve an advisor to help you out and to find something that's going to be a good fit for you. So go out there and find an advisor to do it. Semi-absentee is completely doable with a fast-paced business. I did that back when I was an engineer. I bought with another engineer. We bought dry cleaners. We bought that also had some storage units and some drop-off locations and some rental properties. A little bit of work on the side. We put in probably 10, 15 hours a week doing that, but we had a manager run it as well. So what you'd be looking for then in a franchise is a great franchise system that drives people to you when the need arises, if it's a service industry. So your manager doesn't have to field all the phone calls. Someone that'll help you find that manager will be a good plus as well. You don't want to spend the time doing that. Brick and mortars are pretty easy to run as well. Again, a grand opening system, real estate people that are going to help you do it. And as much as they can help, the franchise can help you find people as far as your, not only your clients, but your employees and your manager as well. And it'll help you in that process. Is something good to look for. But it's good to have an advisor in this, because it is a lot of work for you to go out there and do it yourself and try and weed through the 4,000 or 5,000 franchises we have out there in the United States today. It's really kind of a challenge to go through that yourself and do that. So find somebody, a great franchise consultant, interview a few of them if you need to. I'd kind of prefer you to come to me, but that's fine. There's other great franchise consultants out there as well. Interview a few of them until you find one that you match with, and then have them do all the work for you, because that's what you're looking for. when you want to get a business that's on the side, that's semi-absentee, you want to look for a good team that's going to help you grow that business yourself. And that's what a franchise system is all about, is having that team to help you grow that business.
Yeah, that's the most important thing, because it can't run without a team, and employees,
Very true. Very true.
So, but yeah, this is interesting. About this is something I never thought about, but this might be something, maybe later on down in the future, you know what I mean? To have some sort of solid investment, something that you can invest in, and my thing is cash flow. I want to invest in something that's going to keep cash flowing. Once I get to that point financially, and you seem to be the perfect consultant, because you have how many years experience doing this? You have
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
How many years? 10 years?
Yep.
10 years experience as a consultant. So let's switch this over now to mental health, now that this platform is based on mental health. How did you manage your mental health when you were dealing with all these, working with all these different clients, without going crazy? You know what I mean? How do you balance that, your mental wellness all overall?
Crystal, the biggest part of the biggest challenge I had with mental health was when I was actually being in the corporate world and having to do the commute all the time, and then having to go through the corporate world and deal with the corporate life. That was probably more challenging mentally than anything else. Once I got into this business and juggling all the different people, what I do is I just set aside certain time throughout the day where I'm going to talk with people and work with folks. And then I'm going to set a certain amount of time, and I'll put it on my calendar, a time where I have a chunk of time off. Like I told you right before our call, I was just coming back from taking the dogs for a walk. And that's one of the things I do, is just kind of separate myself out for a while and forget about everything, and just go out and find something that I do that's relaxing. So we got a nice little place here, so I can take the dogs for a walk, get out in the woods, relax, become one with nature. I also have a garden. We have berry patches. We have a couple of fruit orchards. So I like to get out in those, and I like to block out certain parts of the day to where I forget about everything else. And I'm just out there, one with nature, either walking with the dogs, working in the garden, working in the berry patches, working in the fruit orchards, or I can just, get my hands busy, get into the dirt, and get dirty, and just relax and forget about everything else. So
Right.
Then I come back and then start focusing on what my clients need.
That's good advice. Yeah. Sometimes you got to take that time away from everything and just take that time for yourself mentally and physically. That's a good way. And then when you come back fresh, right? Like a brand new person.
That's very, very true, Crystal. That's important to do, is just kind of break away from your day to day.
Right.
And especially when you're doing the kind of the physical work that I do too, you kind of get into shape a little bit, I guess, and get a little bit physical. But you're absolutely right. Good mental health exercise.
Yeah. So, Greg, where can people contact you? You have any social media pages that you would like to throw out there for people to contact you if they're interested and, getting involved in the franchise business?
Absolutely, Crystal. You can go to my website, franchisemaven.com. That's franchise, MAV as in Victor, EN.com. You can email me at greg@franchisemaven.com, or just pick up the phone and give me a call at 361-772-6401.
Okay. How about Instagram? You have an Instagram page?
I do, Franchise Maven.
Oh, that was the Instagram page you just gave me?
Nope, that's Franchise Maven is the Instagram page, and also on Facebook, I believe it's franchise_Maven.
Okay. All right. Greg, I appreciate you coming on and sharing some good information. You never know who wants to start a franchise business. And for my audience, leave a comment below. Make sure you hit that like button. Also, make sure you hit that subscribe button also, so we can continue to bring more guests onto this platform. to give out more valuable information for the audience. So Greg, I appreciate you for coming on again, and you take care of yourself, and take care of that little dog too you got down there. I see. You have a good one.
Thank you, Crystal, for having me. It's been an honor and a pleasure. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.